half hour. What I thought I would do is give you a real brief overview of mindfulness. And then most importantly, the bulk of the half hour, I want to practice. I want to offer you some very specific practices that you can take home this week as a part of this program with Jean that you can actually use for your to support your wellness. Okay, so see if we can change this. So with the idea of resilience, which is just that ability to recover, to adapt, to grow in response to threat or challenges. The practices that I'm going to introduce to you, and maybe you may be familiar with some already, they really do support this idea of adapting and growing and responding to the challenges we meet in our life, really taking care of ourselves. One of the key concepts is that we all have a wandering mind. And sometimes when there's time, I give people a 2-minute exercise to just, it wanders. And what we know from the research is 47% of the time our minds are wandering, meaning that we're thinking about the future or we're thinking about the past, and we're not in the present moment. And yet the present moment is this present moment is the only place we have life. So thinking about the future is important. We plan. Thinking about the past, we can learn from it. But the problem is that our minds drift and go without our permission. And we all know that to be true. You can be driving up the 805 freeway and tend to get off at, let's say, Balboa to go to Spectrum, and you wake up at Claremont Mesa Boulevard, right? So we all know what that's like. By the way, I'm going to present some material practice, and I want to save time for comments, questions, anything that you want to, any feedback you want to give. So the wandering mind. So just very brief with the science. The practices of mindfulness use a sense object as a basis or an anchor. And what we know is that when we practice, it shuts down the default network. And the default network, which can be seen in a functional MRI, is that neural network that lights up when our minds are wandering. Again, 47% of the time. And when we're able to bring ourselves to a direct experience in the present moment, that direct attention network lights up. So it's a very different neural networks. And we all know what that's like. If you sit and watch a sunset and really let it sink in, you know, most people will calm down and really have some experience of beauty or joy. That's the direct attention network lighting up. And as soon as you begin to worry about work or think about the things that happened on the freeway this morning, the default mode network lights up. What we know with mindfulness practices is that we can actually decrease or shut down the default network with the practices I'm going to share with you. So the good news is, in brief, we can change our brains. We know, as you probably know, neuroplasticity means that from the moment we're born till the moment we die, our brains are generating new neurons, and we can actually shape our brains by the experiences we have, and also the internal experience of how we cultivate, how we think, and how we feel. And that's really the heart, in some sense, of mindfulness. So let's start with what's mindfulness. One definition is that it's paying attention to our present moment experience with openness and curiosity. So it's the skill of relating to whatever happens to us, whatever we're experiencing, in a very special way, and cultivating this openness and curiosity with our experience. Another way to think about mindfulness is we're always, whenever we're being mindful and we're practicing, we're developing basically 3 skills. The skill of concentration, which can be defined as that ability to choose what we want to pay attention to that's important. And I think as you experience, as you know, in a world where there's so much distraction, and social media, for example, is hacking our attention, increasingly people are losing the ability to pay attention. And so this skill of increasing the ability, this concentration is important. Clarity, or sense clarity, is just that we can track our experience in real time. We're not lost in thought, but that we can really know when we're seeing something or hearing something or feeling something. You know, you go out to dinner to enjoy a meal, and say, instead of being distracted from the whole experience of the people, the food, you can direct your attention to really have that sense clarity of what's happening that you're experiencing, and you increase your enjoyment as well. And then the third skill is equanimity. One definition is just, we don't need to get rid of anything in our experience, and we don't have to hold on to anything in our experience. So we don't have to hang on to the pleasant, try to get rid of the unpleasant. Equanimity is showing up for both and relating to both in a way that frees us from that reactivity that gets us into so much trouble often in our lives. So let's go ahead. Before we do anything more, are there any questions or comments so far on what I present? I know it's a little speedy. In a teacher school, mindfulness teacher school, they told us we should wait 30 seconds before we ever, when we ask a question, because somebody might. Jean, were you something you were going to ask?
I just unmuted to say that this is a really good intro. It really helps sort of frame it.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's launch into the practices. Let's see. I want to check the time. How we're doing? Okay. So the first practice, you're going to find this very familiar, because what did our mothers, grandmothers, fathers, grandfathers tell us when we got upset? Take a few deep breaths. And what we know, the science is that by breathing, particularly a shorter in-breath and a longer out-breath, we can actually engage the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve 10 in the body, and it directly engages the parasympathetic nervous system, the calming system. So as you practice what we often call 3 deep breaths, you can actually calm yourself, and you can use this anywhere, anytime. You know, on the freeway, standing in a Starbucks line, at work, anywhere. So why don't we go ahead and try it? And you don't even need to change posture to do this. And simply, if you want to count, you could maybe do a slow count of 7 in breath and 4 or 11, well, actually a shorter in breath, so maybe 4, and then a count of 7 out. So let's try it right now. Just slow in breath and a longer, slower out breath. Once again, a shorter in breath and a longer out breath. Maybe one more. Shorter in breath and a longer out breath. Maybe one more, and on the out breath, just imagine letting go. Okay, so breath in, longer breath out. Just imagine letting go. Okay, so as you practice this and as you get good at it, and it takes almost hardly any time, you can actually calm the parasympathetic nervous system, engage the parasympathetic nervous system, and calm your mind and body. The second practice, and again, I'm going to demonstrate these practices, have you do them right now, and then we'll talk about how you experienced it. You might be familiar with what's called the body scan, and it's really a systematic scanning the awareness through the body and noticing wherever there's any tension or holding, and if you can, relaxing it, okay? I teach this a lot in the workplace. Imagine in a conference room, let's say in the hospital, the middle of the workday, and people are really surprised at where they're holding their tension, that they weren't even aware. And so you can actually relax the whole body and mind by doing this. So let's go ahead, if you want to maybe sit up a little bit upright because that kind of alerts the mind. And I'll do a real brief guidance. And wherever, I'll lead us through different parts of the body, but wherever you notice any tension or stress, just see if you can soften the area. Don't try too hard. You want to be gentle. So starting at the top of the head and scanning down to the forehead, the eyes, and you can do this with eyes open or closed, but the eyes, soften the eyes. A lot of tension sometimes we carry in our eyes. And relax the jaw. And notice the back of the neck and the left shoulder. So just dropping maybe the left shoulder slightly. Relaxing that shoulder, scanning down the left arm, the upper arm, the elbow, the lower arm, the left wrist, the hand, fingers, and just in any tension or stress flowing out of the fingers of the left hand. Just relax that left arm. And now bringing the attention back up to the right shoulder. Just maybe dropping the right shoulder slightly. Again, releasing any tension in the shoulder, neck, and scanning down the right arm, the upper arm, the elbow, the lower arm, the wrist, the hands, the fingers. Just imagine all the tension flowing out of the right hand. And now bringing the attention to the chest and the breathing. Just allow the breath to be normal. Be aware of the breath. And now bringing attention to the left hip. And again, scanning down that left leg, the upper leg, the knee, the lower leg, the left foot, the toes. And then bringing the attention to the right leg, right hip, upper leg, the knee, the lower right leg, the foot, the toes. And now just being aware of the whole body, sitting in the chair and relaxing the whole body. Being aware of any calmness or relaxation that appears in the body. And you might notice that in relaxing the body, at times we can relax the mind as well. They go together. Okay, so you can bring your attention back into the room where you're at as well. That's the body scan. So let's put them together. And a mindfulness technique that I use all day long, you know, I'm walking into a Starbucks at 2 in the afternoon expecting that there's not going to be anybody in line, so I can run in and run out. And what do you know? There's a big line and the baristas are really slow. Okay. So right away, I notice I'm in a hurry. I feel irritated. This stop technique can really calm everything down. And it uses both of what we did. It's using the deeper breaths and in a sense, the observe is the body. So the stop means you just stop in the moment, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing for just a moment. And we can do that right now. So then take a few deeper than normal breaths like we just did. Letting the out breath be a little longer than the in breath. And then the O is to just bring your attention into some part of your body. It could be the feeling in your feet. It could be the feeling of your out breath. Just notice the body sensation. And now proceed. So stop is really you just pause for a moment. You take a few deeper than normal breaths. you ground yourself, you ground your attention on a sensation in the body. We use that like an anchor for our attention, and then you proceed. And in using the anchor of our attention on a body sensation, the body is always in the present moment. It's our minds that time travel, okay? So we use actually a sense object to connect our minds to the body, which is always in the present moment. So it's easy to remember stop, and the more you practice this, the more it becomes really natural, and it's a real quick way to kind of bring yourself to presence and to calm yourself down in a situation where you're going to feel stress. And let's do one last technique. So one way to think about all of our experience is that we're constantly either seeing, hearing, or feeling something in our body. And we can pick any one of these sense objects, the ability to see sound, or the ability to feel a sensation in our body. We just did that. You might have felt, let's say, some tension in your neck or the feeling of your foot. We can use any of these sense objects as, again, an anchor for our attention. And again, mindfulness is just paying attention to present moment experience with openness and curiosity. So a very common meditation, for example, and Jean's going to work with you over these next few weeks using different sense objects. But let's go ahead and do feel. So let's do about 2 minutes of a feel practice, actually. So assuming a mindfulness posture, which is just sitting up straight, that alerts the mind. You can do this with your eyes open or closed, and taking a couple deeper than normal breaths. And now bring your attention to a sensation in your body. It could be the feeling in your feet. It could be the feeling of your out breath. It could be a feeling in your hand. Just pick one and rest your attention on that sense object. And you'll notice that naturally the mind will wander somewhere else. And when it does, just kindly and gently bring your attention back to your anchor, to your sense object. And we'll do this over and over again for just a couple minutes. Noticing when your attention drifts away, and just rest it back on that sense object. So when the attention wanders and we bring it back, it's often described as a bicep curl for the brain. You're strengthening your concentration. So we'll do 1 more minute of this practice. Just begin again. Resting your attention on the sense object. Okay, we can go ahead and, if your eyes are closed, you might open them, bring them back into the room.